Admiral Zorax Vanthi stared out through the curved observation dome of the command center aboard the Stellar Dominance, flagship of the galactic hegemony's 7th Conquest Fleet. His 4 violet eyes blinked in sequence: right upper, right lower, left lower, a nervous tic he'd developed over his 3 centuries of military service. A neural implant at the base of his skull pulsed with tactical data: 67 warships, 32 heavy cruisers, 18 planet crackers, all under his command. What a waste of resources, he muttered, mandibles clicking in annoyance. Sending this much firepower to deal with primitive bipeds? The High Council must be getting paranoid in their old age. His second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Linux Kalara, suppressed a warble of amusement. Perhaps they watched too many of those ancient horror archives from the Zorblaxian extinction event. You know how the counselors love their historical dramas. Historical dramas? More like historical traumas. Zorax snorted. The Zorblaxians were incompetent fools who couldn't properly scan a Class 3 civilization. They deserved what they got. The bridge crew kept their eyes focused on their stations, pretending not to hear their commanding officer's borderline treasonous conversation. The galactic hegemony did not appreciate criticism of past military campaigns, even failed ones from millennia ago. Still, Nix said, her voice dropping to a whisper as she moved closer to the Admiral, there's something odd about these humans. Did you read the preliminary report? Their technological development curve is unusual. Zorax waved a dismissive claw. All species have their quirks. The Krallians developed space travel before they invented agriculture. The Mephits created artificial intelligence before they discovered electricity. Evolution is rarely linear. Yes, but the humans went from atmospheric flight to nuclear weapons in less than 50 cycles. And their cultural output is excessive. Most species produce a few thousand works of fiction before they reach space. The humans have created millions. Their imagination is concerning. Imagination doesn't win wars, Sub-Admiral, Zorax said, though there was a hint of unease in his voice. Firepower does, and we have plenty of that. The holographic display in the center of the command deck flickered to life, showing the blue-green world they were approaching. Earth. Such an unimaginative name for a homeworld. Most species named their planets after gods or historical figures or complex poetic concepts. These humans simply called their world dirt. We will be in optimal bombardment range in 3 rotations, announced Tactical Officer Plex Durun, his tentacles dancing across the control panel. Standard procedure suggests we begin with a demonstration strike on their moon base to encourage immediate surrender. Agreed, Zorax said. Prepare the bombardment sequence. Admiral, came a hesitant voice from the sensor station. Lieutenant Gara Tuum, a young Vexillian with more enthusiasm than experience, was staring at her display with all 3 of her eye stalks rigid, a sign of intense concentration in her species. I'm detecting an anomalous energy reading from the dark side of their moon. Zorax felt a flicker of irritation. Probably just their primitive fusion reactors. They established that lunar outpost decades ago, according to intelligence. No, sir. This is different. It doesn't match any known human energy signature in our database. And it's massive, at least 40 times larger than anything we have observed from them before. Now that got Zorax's attention. He moved across the command deck with surprising speed for his bulky frame. Show me. The display shifted, zooming in on the cratered surface of Earth's moon. There, partially concealed in the shadow of a massive crater, was something. The sensors couldn't get a clear reading through some kind of interference field, but the energy output was undeniable. What in the 7 hells is that? Zorax muttered. As if in answer to his question, the mysterious object began to move, emerging from the shadow of the crater and into the harsh sunlight of space. And as it did, a cold feeling spread through Zorax's 4 stomachs. A ship, but not like any human ship they had on record. This vessel was enormous, nearly half the size of the Stellar Dominance itself. Its hull was black as the void, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Angular, predatory, with none of the clumsy utilitarian design that characterized known human spacecraft. It was impossible, breathed Nix beside him. Our intelligence indicates they are at least 70 cycles away from producing capital ships. Well, our intelligence is clearly defective, Zorax snapped. Scan that vessel. I want to know its capabilities immediately. The bridge erupted into frantic activity as officers rushed to comply. But before they could complete their scans, the communications officer called out, "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Audio and visual." Zorax straightened his ceremonial cape, composing himself. First contact with a new human ship was still a diplomatic situation, regardless of the circumstances. Put it through. The main view screen flickered, and the image of a human appeared. Female, Zorax thought, though he struggled to distinguish their genders reliably. This one had short dark hair and skin the color of fertile soil. Her uniform was black with silver trim, minimalist but somehow intimidating in its simplicity. "Attention alien vessels," she said, her voice calm and measured. "This is Captain Dana Reeves of the Earth Defense Force Battleship Reckoning. You have entered restricted space without authorization. Identify yourselves and state your purpose immediately." Zorax almost laughed. The audacity. A single ship admittedly larger than expected demanding identification from a conquest fleet? Still, there was protocol to follow. "I am Admiral Zorax Vanthi of the Galactic Hegemony's 7th Conquest Fleet. Your planet has been scheduled for integration into our glorious empire. Resistance is futile and will result in planetary bombardment, rather than the more humane option of surrender and selective population preservation." Their standard conquest speech, delivered with appropriate gravitas. Now the human would panic or plead or make some futile threat. Captain Reeves blinked. Once. Then a small smile appeared on her face. Not the reaction Zorax had expected. "Integration, huh? That's a fancy word for invasion." She shook her head slightly. "Admiral Vanthi, I'm going to give you one chance to turn your fleet around and leave our solar system. We have no interest in your empire, glorious or otherwise." Now Zorax did laugh, a rumbling sound that caused his secondary air bladders to vibrate visibly. "Captain Reeves, perhaps you failed to notice that you are facing 67 warships with a single vessel. Your courage is admirable but misplaced." "Numbers aren't everything, Admiral." The human's smile widened slightly. "But since you seem concerned about the odds, allow me to even them a bit." She made a small gesture to someone off-screen. And then, to Zorax's horror, the sensors began screaming with new alerts. All across Earth's moon, what had appeared to be natural craters were opening. No, not craters, launch bays, and from them emerged ships, dozens of them. Smaller than the Reckoning but still formidable, sleek and predatory. And that wasn't all. From the dark side of Earth itself came more vessels, rising through the atmosphere like angry insects disturbed from their nest. Tactical analysis. Zorax barked, trying to keep the panic from his voice. Plex Duroon was frantically working his console, all 6 tentacles blurring with motion. 123, no, 147 vessels detected, various classes, from frigates to what appear to be heavy cruisers. They are forming a defensive perimeter around the planet and moon. "That's impossible," Nix whispered beside him. "Our intelligence said they had less than 30 orbital platforms, all of them unarmed research stations." On the view screen, Captain Reeves continued, her voice taking on an almost conversational tone. "You know, Admiral, we humans have a saying, don't judge a book by its cover. It means appearances can be deceiving. We have known about the hegemony for decades. Your stealth isn't nearly as good as you think it is." "If you have known about us," Zorax said, struggling to maintain his composure, "then you know resistance is pointless. The hegemony has conquered thousands of worlds. Your fleet, impressive as it may be for a species at your development stage, cannot hope to stand against us." "Oh, we are not planning to resist you, Admiral." The human's smile turned predatory. "We are planning to defeat you." A new alert sounded on the tactical display. The human ships were powering up weapons systems. Weapons unlike anything in the hegemony database. Admiral Plex called out, voice cracking with stress, "I'm detecting energy readings consistent with singularity manipulation." Impossible. Zorax roared. That's Tier 9 technology. No emerging species has ever developed gravitational weapons before achieving interstellar travel. As I said, Captain Reeves replied, somehow having heard his outburst, despite it not being directed at the communication channel, appearances can be deceiving. Now, I will ask once more, will you withdraw your fleet, or would you prefer a demonstration of human hospitality? The bridge of the stellar dominance had fallen completely silent. Every officer, every technician, every warrior of the mighty hegemony stood frozen at their posts, their eyes fixed on either the view screen showing the calm human captain or the tactical displays showing the impossible human fleet. Zorax felt the weight of command pressing down on him like a neutron star. The High Council had sent him here expecting an easy conquest, a simple addition to the hegemony's ever-expanding borders. They hadn't prepared him for was, "You are bluffing," he said finally, but there was no conviction in his voice. "Those ships are decoys, holograms. You cannot have developed this level of technology without our knowledge." Captain Reeves sighed, looking genuinely disappointed. "I was hoping we could resolve this peacefully." "Very well." She turned to someone off-screen again. "Commander Jackson, target their flagship's propulsion systems. Minimal yield, please. We want to disable, not destroy." "Wait," Zorax called out, but it was too late. From the reckoning, a pulse of energy unlike anything Zorax had ever seen erupted from what must have been its main weapon array. Not the familiar glow of plasma, or the rippling distortion of disruptor fire, but something else, a beam of absolute darkness that seemed to bend the starlight around it. It struck the stellar dominance with surgical precision. There was no explosion, no violent impact. Instead, a perfect circular section of the flagship's left propulsion array simply ceased to exist. The surrounding metal didn't melt or shatter, it terminated in a perfect circle, as if that portion of reality had been edited out of existence. "By the eternal void," whispered Nyx beside him, giving voice to the blasphemy Zorax couldn't bring himself to utter. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated momentarily as the propulsion systems automatically recalibrated to compensate for the sudden asymmetry. Warning signals blared across every console on the bridge. "Damage report." Zorax demanded, though he could already see the answer on the tactical display. "Port propulsion cluster has been removed," reported the engineering officer, his voice hollow with shock. "Not damaged. Removed. Clean excision at the quantum level. We are limited to 40% maximum thrust and our maneuverability is severely compromised." On the view screen, Captain Reeves's expression hadn't changed. "That was our lowest power setting, Admiral. The next demonstration won't be so gentle." "Now, about that withdrawal," I suggested. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Zorax Vanthi found himself completely at a loss for words. The hegemony had encountered resistance before, of course. Some species fought bravely before their inevitable defeat. Some even managed to destroy a hegemony vessel or two before being overwhelmed. But this casual display of technological superiority? This was unprecedented. And yet surrender was unthinkable. The High Council would have him executed for cowardice. His name would be struck from the ancestral records. His genetic line terminated. "We will not be intimidated by parlor tricks," he said finally, infusing his voice with a confidence he did not feel. "The galactic hegemony has stood for 10,000 cycles. We have conquered species far more advanced than yours. This demonstration changes nothing." He turned to his tactical officer. "Target their flagship. All forward batteries." Plex hesitated, his tentacles trembling slightly. "Sir, are you certain that's wise?" "Execute the order, tactical officer, or I will find someone who will." Plex's skin flushed a deep orange, the Duraxian equivalent of a fearful pallor, but he complied, manipulating the controls with practiced efficiency despite his obvious reservations. "Weapons locked on target," he reported, awaiting your command. Zorax fixed his gaze on the human captain, still watching him with that infuriating calm. "Your species had potential, Captain Reeves. It's a shame it will end this way." He drew himself up to his full height, mandibles flaring in the traditional Vanthian gesture of dominance. Fire. The stellar dominance shuddered as its forward batteries discharged, sending a devastating barrage of plasma bolts and kinetic impactors toward the human flagship. Enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble. And yet, as the barrage approached the reckoning, something extraordinary happened. The space around the human vessel seemed to ripple, like heat rising from desert sands. The incoming fire simply vanished, not deflected, not absorbed by shields, vanished, as if it had never existed. What in the name of the seven hells just happened? Zorax demanded, his voice rising to a pitch that would have been embarrassing under less extreme circumstances. "Some kind of spatial distortion field," reported the science officer, his analysis screens flickering with incomprehensible data. "They are manipulating the fabric of space-time itself around their vessel. Our weapons aren't being blocked, they are being diverted into somewhere else." On the view screen, Captain Reeves shook her head slightly. "That was disappointing, Admiral. I had hoped for better from a species that prides itself on its 10,000 cycles of conquest." She leaned forward slightly, her expression hardening for the first time. "Let me be perfectly clear. We have studied your hegemony for decades. We know your tactics, your technologies, your strengths, and your weaknesses. We could have struck at any time, but we waited. Watched, learned, and prepared. Why?" The question escaped Zorax's mouth before he could stop it. "Why reveal yourselves now? Why not remain hidden until your technological advantage was even greater?" Because not all humans agreed with the wait-and-see approach, Reeves replied with a small shrug. "Some of us believed we should introduce ourselves to the galactic community on our own terms, rather than hiding in the shadows. Today's demonstration was a compromise, a controlled revelation of our capabilities to a conquest fleet, rather than a diplomatic mission." She smiled again, but there was no warmth in it. "Your arrival gave the interventionist faction the excuse they needed. So in a way, Admiral, you have done us a favor. You have broken our political deadlock." "How generous of us," Nix muttered beside him, the sarcasm thick enough to cut with a vibroblade. Zorax ignored her, his mind racing through options that were rapidly dwindling. Pride demanded continued resistance. Duty to his crew suggested retreat. And somewhere, in the deepest part of his tactical mind, a new emotion was forming: curiosity. These humans were unlike any species the hegemony had encountered before. Their technological development had somehow leapfrogged centuries of expected progression. How? Why? The scientist in him, long suppressed beneath the warrior's carapace, yearned to know. "Captain Reeves," he said finally, choosing his words with care, "you have demonstrated your superior firepower. If conquest is not your intention, what do you want from this encounter?" The human's expression softened slightly. "What we want, Admiral Vanthi, is for you to carry a message back to your hegemony. Earth and the Sol system are off limits. We have no interest in your empire or your wars. We will defend our territory, but we do not seek expansion at your expense." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Consider today a professional courtesy one military to another. We could have destroyed your fleet the moment you entered our system. Instead, we are offering you the chance to leave in peace and deliver our terms to your leaders. Terms. Not a surrender, but terms. As if they were equals, or more accurately, as if the hegemony were the inferior power in need of lenient treatment. The very idea was revolutionary, heretical even. And yet, faced with the evidence before him, Zorax could not deny the reality of their situation. This human fleet, with its impossible weapons and defenses, could indeed have destroyed them at any time. "And if I refuse?" he asked, more out of stubborn pride than any real strategic consideration. Captain Reeves's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. Then we will disable your vessels one by one and send your crews home in escape pods. It will be humiliating for you personally, devastating for your military career, and embarrassing for your hegemony. I assume none of those outcomes appeal to you. No, they did not. Zorax turned away from the view screen, ostensibly to consult with Nyx, but really to hide the conflicting emotions playing across his features. Your orders, Admiral, Nyx asked quietly. Zorax looked around the bridge, at the officers and crew who served under him. Good soldiers all, loyal to the hegemony and to him. They deserved better than to die in a hopeless battle against an enemy who clearly had no desire to destroy them. And perhaps, just perhaps, the High Council needed to hear about these humans and their extraordinary capabilities. The hegemony had grown complacent in its 10 millennia of expansion. This could be the wake-up call they needed. Transmit a general order to all vessels, he said finally. We are withdrawing from this system. The bridge erupted in a flurry of activity as his officers rushed to comply, their relief palpable despite their disciplined exteriors. Zorax turned back to the view screen, where Captain Reeves waited patiently. We will withdraw, Captain, and I will personally deliver your message to the High Council. She nodded, a gesture of respect that seemed genuine. Thank you, Admiral. For what it's worth, I believe you are making the right choice. Perhaps, he replied. Or perhaps I'm merely postponing the inevitable conflict between our civilizations. That's always a possibility, Reeves acknowledged. But today, at least, there will be peace between us. As the communication ended and the massive hegemony fleet began its ponderous turn away from Earth, Zorax found himself wondering what the High Council would make of his report. Would they rage against this unprecedented setback, plot immediate revenge? Or would they, like him, find themselves curious about these remarkable humans? One thing was certain, the galaxy had just become a far more interesting place. The journey back to hegemony space was the longest of Admiral Zorax Vanthie's career. Not in actual duration, the fleet's quantum drives were functioning perfectly despite the surgical strike on the flagship's propulsion systems, but in the psychological weight that pressed down upon him with each passing moment. 3 days until we reach the Nexus Gate, Sub-Admiral Nyx reported, sliding a data tablet across the conference table. Engineering reports they have stabilized the propulsion asymmetry. We won't win any speed competitions, but we will make it home. Zorax grunted, not bothering to look at the report. They sat alone in his private war chamber, a room typically used for planning invasions, not retreats. 3 days to contemplate my imminent execution, he said, his 4 eyes blinking in that nervous sequence again. How thoughtful of the humans to leave us with enough time to get our affairs in order. Nyx leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper despite the room's privacy shields. Do you really believe the Council will have you executed? You saved the fleet. You brought back invaluable intelligence about a previously unknown threat. I brought back news of failure? Zorax corrected her. The hegemony doesn't reward failure, regardless of the circumstances. Then perhaps it should, Nyx said with surprising boldness. If we executed every commander who encountered superior force, we'd never learn from our mistakes. Zorax studied his second-in-command with newfound appreciation. In 3 centuries of military service, he'd never heard such direct criticism of hegemony doctrine. It was refreshing. And dangerous. Be careful, Sub-Admiral, he warned. Such talk borders on sedition. Does it? Or is it simply common sense? Nyx gestured to the holographic display showing the fleet's formation. 67 ships returned intact. Over 30,000 crew members alive to fight another day. Compare that to the alternative. The alternative was victory, Zorax said, but there was no conviction in his voice. They both knew the humans could have annihilated them. The alternative was oblivion, Nyx countered. You saw what their weapons did. That wasn't conventional technology. They weren't firing at us, they were editing reality. The memory sent an involuntary shudder through Zorax's carapace. The perfect circular void where a section of his ship had been. not destroyed, removed from existence. What do you think they are? He asked quietly. No species develops that kind of technology in isolation. No evolutionary path leads directly to singularity manipulation. Nyx hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I have been reviewing the historical archives. There are legends, ancient texts from before the hegemony's founding. They speak of the precursors. Myths and fairy tales, Zorak scoffed, but without his usual certainty. Perhaps. But every myth contains a kernel of truth, doesn't it? The texts describe beings who could reshape matter with thought, but could fold space like fabric. You think these humans are precursors? The idea was absurd. The precursors, if they had ever existed, had vanished millions of cycles ago. No, Nyx said. But what if they found precursor technology? What if, by some cosmic coincidence, their world contained artifacts beyond their understanding? Artifacts they reverse-engineered? It was a disturbing thought. The hegemony had spent millennia searching for precursor technology without success. If these primitives had stumbled upon it by sheer luck. We should include this theory in our report, Zorax decided. The Council must consider all possibilities. And if they dismiss it? If they order an immediate retaliatory strike? Then they will learn what we learned, Zorax said grimly, but at a much higher cost. The communication alert chimed, interrupting their conversation. Zorax tapped the console, expecting a routine status update from one of his officers. Instead, the holographic display flickered to show Captain Dana Reeves. Zorax leapt to his feet, mandibles flaring in shock. How are you accessing this channel? We are light years from your system. The human captain smiled that unnervingly calm smile. Distance is relative, Admiral, especially when you understand space the way we do. Are you following us? The thought sent cold dread through Zorax's primary heart. Not physically, no. Think of this as a targeted quantum entanglement communication. Your ship's quantum drive creates a unique signature that we can piggyback on, for lack of a better term. Nyx had activated the tactical display, frantically scanning for any sign of human vessels. Admiral, there's nothing out there. No pursuit craft, no drones, nothing. Of course not, Reeves said. As I explained, we are not following you. I simply wanted to continue our conversation from earlier. There are some details I thought you might want to include in your report to your superiors. Zorax slowly lowered himself back into his seat, mind racing. This communication violated every known principle of hegemony quantum theory. To establish a link across light years without a gate network or relay buoys was impossible. And yet, here she was. I'm listening, he said finally. Good. Reeves clasped her hands in front of her. First, I want to clarify something. The technology you witnessed wasn't developed in isolation as you suggested to your sub-admiral a moment ago. Zorax shot an alarmed glance at Nyx. They had been speaking privately, behind privacy shields, moments ago. Reading his expression, Reeves continued, Yes, we can hear you. Not all the time, that would be an invasion of privacy. But when we opened this communication channel, we caught the tail end of your conversation. That's concerning, Zorax said, understating the matter considerably. I understand your discomfort, Reeves acknowledged. But I think you will want to hear what I have to say. You were partially correct in your theories. We didn't develop our technology entirely independently. But we didn't find precursor artifacts either. She paused, as if considering how much to reveal. We had guidance. From refugees. Refugees. Zorax repeated, confused. From where? From your hegemony. The statement hung in the air like a plasma charge, ready to detonate. Zorax felt his primary heart skip a beat. Impossible, he said automatically. No hegemony citizens would. Not citizens, Reeves corrected him. Subjects. Conquered peoples. Species who suffered under your expansion and managed to escape. They found their way to us, one by one, over centuries, and they brought knowledge, warnings, technologies, names, Zorax demanded. Which species? The Arathi, for one. Zorax exchanged a shocked look with Nyx. The Arathi had been presumed extinct for over 1,000 cycles, their homeworld reduced to ash after they refused integration. The Volith Collective, Reeves continued. The Junari, the Yaxan Protectorate. Each name struck like a physical blow. Man. Lost species. Failed conquests. Rebellions that had been crushed with overwhelming force. They survived, Nyx whispered. Some did, Reeves confirmed. Enough to reach Earth. Enough to warn us what was coming. And enough to help us prepare. Why? Zorax asked. Why would they help you? You are not their kind. Reeves smiled, but there was sadness in it. Because we welcomed them. Because we listened to their stories and offered sanctuary instead of subjugation. Because despite our violent tendencies, which they certainly warned us about, humans have one quality that your hegemony seems to lack. And what's that? Zorax asked, though he feared the answer. Empathy, Reeves said simply. The ability to recognize suffering in others and desire to alleviate it, even when those others look nothing like us. A weakness, Zorax said automatically, repeating the doctrine that had been instilled in him since hatching. Is it? Reeves raised an eyebrow. It gave us allies, knowledge. Technology centuries beyond what we could have developed alone. It gave us friends among the stars before we ever left our planet. She leaned forward, her expression intense. That's the message I want you to take to your council, Admiral. Humanity isn't alone. We haven't just been preparing to defend ourselves, we have been creating a sanctuary for those fleeing hegemony expansion. A place where different species can live together without conquest or subjugation. You have been harboring traitors and fugitives, Zorax said, but the accusation sounded hollow even to his own hearing appendages. We have been sheltering refugees and victims, Reeves countered. And now, with the technology they have helped us develop, we are ready to offer that shelter to others. The implications were staggering. If what she said was true, if Earth had become some kind of interspecies resistance hub, then the hegemony faced a threat unlike any in its 10,000-cycle history. The Council will never allow this, Zorax said. They will send 100 fleets. 1,000. They will throw everything at you until you are overwhelmed. Perhaps Reeves acknowledged. But consider this, Admiral. If these supposedly extinct species found their way to us, how many others might be out there, looking for allies? How many conquered worlds harbor resentment? Waiting for a chance to throw off hegemony control? You are not fighting just humans. You are fighting against the legacy of 10,000 cycles of oppression. Zorax felt suddenly old, the weight of his 3 centuries pressing down on him. He had served the hegemony faithfully his entire life, never questioning its methods or its mission. Expansion was progress. Uniformity was strength. These were the axioms upon which his existence was built. And now this human and her impossible fleet had shaken those foundations. Why tell me this? He asked finally. Why reveal your hand? Because we believe in giving people choices, Reeves said. Including you, Admiral Vanthi. Me? Zorax's mandibles clicked in surprise. What choice do I have? You can deliver our message to your council, knowing they may well execute you for it. Or, she paused meaningfully. Or what? Zorax demanded. Or you can come to Earth. You and anyone in your fleet who wishes to accompany you. We offer sanctuary not just to the oppressed, but to those who choose to stop being oppressors. Silence fell over the war chamber. Zorax couldn't bring himself to look at Nyx, couldn't bear to see whatever expression might be on her face. You are asking me to betray everything I have ever known, he said finally, and to abandon my duty. My oath. I'm asking you to consider your duty to something larger than the hegemony, Reeves replied gently. But duty to life itself. To coexistence rather than conquest. And if I refuse? If I continue to my rendezvous with the Council? Then we wish you safe travels, Admiral. The choice is yours, freely given. Another silence heavier than the first. How would we even reach you? Nix asked suddenly. We are heading in the opposite direction. Reeves smiled. We can help with that. Your quantum drives are adaptable. With your permission, we could provide coordinates and the necessary modifications to bring you to Earth space. Just like that? Zorax was skeptical. You'd welcome a hegemony warfleet to your doorstep? We welcomed the Arethi, who were renowned warriors, of the Volith, who were feared scientists, the Junari, who were master strategists. Reeves shrugged. We are not naive, Admiral. Any visitors would be subject to certain security protocols. But yes, we would welcome you, not as conquerors or the conquered, but as equals. Equals. The word resonated in Zorax's mind like a musical tone. In his 3 centuries of service, he had never encountered a species that the hegemony considered equal. Superior or inferior, threat or resource, but never equal. I need time, he said finally, to consider, to discuss with my officers. Of course, Reeves nodded. We will contact you again in 1 rotation. But Admiral, I should warn you we are not the only ones with this technology. If the refugees who reached us could do so, others may have found different havens. The galaxy is changing, with or without your participation. With that, her image flickered and vanished, leaving Zorax and Nix alone in the suddenly too quiet war chamber. What do you think? Zorax asked eventually, unable to read his second-in-command's expression. Nix was silent for a long moment. I think, she said finally, that I have spent my entire career wondering if there was a better way. If expansion and conquest were truly the only path to security and prosperity. She met his gaze directly, all 4 of her eyes focused on his. And I think this human just offered us a chance to find out. Zorax turned to the viewport, staring out at the stars streaking by as the fleet continued its journey toward hegemony space, toward duty and doctrine and the familiar certainty of hierarchy, away from uncertainty, from change, from possibility. Gather the ship commanders, he said suddenly, his decision crystallizing. Secure channel, full encryption. Tell them we have received new intelligence that requires immediate discussion. All of them? Nix asked, surprised. Even the Loyalists? Especially the Loyalists, Zorax said. Everyone deserves the choice Captain Reeves offered us. I won't make it for them. And you, Admiral? Have you made your choice? Zorax touched the neural implant at the base of his skull, the symbol of his rank and his connection to the hegemony hive mind. With a twist and a sharp tug, he removed it, severing that connection for the first time in centuries. The sudden silence in his mind was terrifying and exhilarating. Yes, he said, placing the implant on the table. I believe I have. Fleet status? Captain Dana Reeves asked, standing on the bridge of the Reckoning as it maintained position above Earth's northern hemisphere. Holding at Defense Condition 3, Captain, replied Commander Elias Jackson, her EXO. All ships report normal operations. The lunar batteries are fully charged, and the orbital platforms have rotated crews for the 3rd watch. And our guests? Jackson checked his tablet. Ambassador Kiri Shan of the Arethi is standing by in Communication Center 3. She's eager to speak with Admiral Vanthi if he accepts our invitation. Reeves nodded, gazing at the holographic display showing the vast armada of Earth Defense Force vessels scattered throughout the Sol system. Some were genuine warships, built with technology shared by the refugee species. Others were elaborate decoys, constructed hastily when their early warning systems had detected the approaching hegemony fleet. Do you think he will come? Jackson asked, moving to stand beside her. I don't know, Reeves admitted. 3 centuries of indoctrination is hard to overcome. But I saw something in him. Doubt, curiosity, the beginnings of change. And if he reports to the hegemony instead? If they send a larger force? Then we will face them too. Reeves turned to look at the crew working around them. Humans, yes, but also Arethi with their iridescent scales, Volith with their crystalline appendages, Junari with their gas-bag bodies floating above specially designed workstations, together. The communication officer, a young Zan with vibrating antennae, suddenly straightened. "Captain, we are detecting a quantum signature matching the hegemony fleet." Reeves felt her pulse quicken. "Location?" "Just beyond Pluto's orbit, Captain. They have altered course. They are heading toward us." A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Not fear, but anticipation. "How many vessels?" Jackson asked tensely. The Zan officer consulted his instruments. 23, Commander. Approximately 1/3 of their original fleet. Reeves smiled. 1/3. Not all, but enough. "A beginning. Open a channel," she ordered, "and inform Ambassador Kiri Shan that we will need her expertise shortly. We are about to make history." On the main view screen, Admiral Zorax Vanthi appeared. His ceremonial cape was gone, as was the neural implant that had marked his rank. Behind him stood Sub-Admiral Nix and a collection of officers from various hegemony species, all similarly divested of their imperial insignia. "Captain Reeves," Zorax said, his voice steady despite the momentous nature of the moment. "Permission to enter Earth space with peaceful intent?" "Permission granted, Admiral," Reeves replied. "Welcome to the beginning of a new relationship between our peoples." As the hegemony ship's former conquerors, now refugees of a different sort, moved cautiously into the Sol system, guided by Earth vessels, Zorax permitted himself a small gesture that would have been unthinkable days earlier. He smiled. "You know," he said conversationally, "in 10,000 cycles of hegemony history, this is the first time a conquest fleet has returned with allies instead of subjects." "There's a first time for everything," Admiral Reeves replied. "And if we are successful, this won't be the last. The galaxy is changing. Today we change with it." The former hegemony vessels moved into formation alongside the Earth Defense Fleet, no longer enemies, not quite friends, but something new, something with potential. And throughout the vast silence of space, across quantum channels and through relay stations hidden in the shadows between stars, word began to spread. Of humans who welcomed rather than conquered. Of a fleet that turned away from duty toward possibility. Of a sanctuary among the stars. For the first time in 10 millennia, the galactic hegemony faced a threat it had never anticipated, an alternative. The conquest of space, it seemed, had given way to the exploration of cooperation. And in the great cosmic scale of things, that might prove to be the most powerful force of all.